National security correspondent David Martin joins us now from the Pentagon. David, thanks for being here. The president says he's not for endless war, he's not for open-ended conflicts, but a lot of people are wondering, after 14 years, what is the end goal?
The end goal is an Afghanistan that sort of works. You don't want a country which, as it was before 9/11, is a sanctuary from which terrorists can plot without any real threat to their safety, plot against Americans, both abroad and in the United States. So if you have a country that sort of works, it's not a perfect democracy, it's not a rising economic power, but it's got enough military capability to keep the Taliban at bay and to put enough pressure on al-Qaeda and its affiliates so that it cannot sit in safety and plot further attacks against the United States.
David, this shift in policy, does that translate into a shift in strategy?
Well, you know, I think in a way it does, because the president came into office basically determined to bring an end to two wars, the war in Iraq, the war in Afghanistan. It didn't work with Iraq because after the U.S. pulled out in 2011, there was a brief period of stability, and then ISIS came in from Syria, and now the U.S. finds itself conducting 60 to 70 airstrikes a day against targets in Iraq and Syria. So that is one ongoing war. Then he had hoped to end the war in Afghanistan by the end of his presidency, get down to 1,000 troops based in the embassy, which would just be a normal military presence to carry on all of the military-to-military business that goes on between two countries. But he has been unable to do that, principally because the Taliban has been resilient and resurgent enough to pose threats to major cities. We saw the major city, a provincial capital of Kunduz, taken by the Taliban last month, and they still can mount attacks in the capital of Kabul. And they also have a presence throughout a lot of the rural areas in the country. So that the facts on the ground just prevented him from making good on his aim of getting down to just a basic military presence in Afghanistan by the end of his presidency. And I'm sure that the specter of what happened in Iraq would be hanging over him and his advisors as they made this decision to keep troops there. Because if you were to pull out again and a similar resurgence of a terrorist group were to happen, as happened in Iraq, that would be a waste of 13, 14 years of sacrifice. So now there will be 5,500 troops fighting in, not fighting in Afghanistan, both as advisors and as special operations forces that go after members of al-Qaeda. How long those 5,500 troops stay is going to be a decision for the next president. But let's face it, this is an open-ended conflict.
Yeah, David, in fact, that question, how long, looking even further back than Iraq, are there lessons, similarities, perhaps unique challenges, for example, to the United States in Berlin after the end of the war? We were there for many, many years until the geopolitical landscape actually changed. Or are we looking at something like South Korea, where we are still there 50 years after the end of the Korean War?
Well, those analogies don't exactly work for me, because those are conventional forces against conventional forces. You have the Soviet Army on one side of the Iron Curtain. You have NATO, the U.S. and its allies on the other, with all of their tank brigades and conventional forces. And of course, you have the same situation across the DMZ in Korea. This is unconventional war. This is what the war on terrorism has become, and I think increasingly people have come to recognize that the war on terrorism is not just about killing terrorists, because you just can't kill enough of them to eliminate the threat. The way you win the war on terror is for the ideology which foments the terror to be discredited. And that's that radical Islamic ideology that wants to take the Middle East back to a caliphate at the time of the Prophet Muhammad.
David Martin at the Pentagon. David, thank you.
Sure thing.